everyone. Good evening to those of you who are in Asia. Good afternoon to those of you who are in Russia and the Middle East. And very good morning to my friend Jamil in Argentina and the rest of the Americas. Now, I have to tell you that I was woken up one of these days by a strange sound, a roar of a heavy American military aircraft, which was landing at an airport nearby, bringing to Russia lung ventilators. It's a very good sign. It was a reciprocal thing because several weeks ago, Russia in turn sent lung ventilators to the United States at the height of the crisis. But of course, these are exceptions rather than the rule in today's world. Yes, we have seen the Cubans being sent to Italy. We've seen the Russian military helping the Italians and the Serbs. But other than that, I think we must admit that the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, is the one which has underlined the divisions on this planet. So what can be done? My speech is going to be about energy, because I am indeed in my parallel life president of the Global Energy Association. Global Energy is a prize awarded to major achievements and discoveries in the energy sector. But of course, you can't live in a world of science without being connected with the world of realities. And in fact, one of the few organizations which is actually older than the United Nations, which exists on this planet, is the World Energy Council, with headquarters in London, which was founded back in the 1920s by the United Kingdom, the United States, and the Russian Federation. Well, the Soviet Union back then. So my today's speech is a rehearsal of a major conference, which we're holding this week, because next year it's going to be in Russia, in St. Petersburg, that the next Congress of the World Energy Council meets. And on Wednesday, we're having the first of the Road to the Congress cycle online conferences. Now, what can we see here on this planet regarding energy after the COVID-19 pandemic? Let me first of all quote Charles Grant. I think many of you know him. He's director of the Center for European Reform in London. And among things which divide Europe today, he says, he puts deglobalization, specifically the disruption of supply chains, not only for medical equipment, but even for auto components, the resurgent influence of national capitals aiming to counter Brussels, the strengthening of borders, not just the internal border of the Schengen zone, but also the reimposition of controls on national borders between zone members. Well, this is being changed, but still there was a problem like that. And of course, the growing division within the EU along the north-south and east-west lines. Although I'd say that we see roughly the same all over the world, where divisions are growing and national egoism is growing. Now, the easiest thing to say about the state of affairs in the energy sector is to refer to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which say that the energy must be safe and affordable. Here are the two pillars of this thing, and I'll be talking about energy indeed being safe and affordable. Now, what do we see now? We see that on May 14th, in Germany, they demolished 252-meter cooling towers at the closed nuclear plant in Philipsburg. So Germany, even at the height of the crisis, has not abandoned its plan to dismantle its nuclear energy sector. Now, this does not coincide with how, say, the Poles in the European Union see the situation, because the Poles want to defend their coal industry, which in the eyes of the Germans is brown and dangerous. Well, at least it's not clean. What do we see on the other side of Europe? We see the UK developing its nuclear industry. Well, it has in fact rediscovered the merits of nuclear energy. We see the initiative by Tom Blair from the United States, for whom the new picture, the real new picture, is the launch of floating nuclear reactors, which would help the energy supply in the third world, which is, of course, an anathema for the Germans. I'm actually pouring all those contradictions, but they actually create a picture. In Russia, in turn, the son of the famous writer Solzhenitsyn has just become the president of the coal company, which means that the elite in this country supports the coal industry. And at the same time, we have a very interesting reflection by two leading thinkers. One of them is the president of the IMIMO Institute here in Moscow, Alexander Zinkin. The other is Rui Chung, the Nobel Prize winner, who presides over the International Committee of the Global Energy, who both say that the fall of the oil prices, even with the rise in the recent days, is such that the alternative energy is no longer viable. That said, we strangely have nearly simultaneous publications in the Financial Times and the Guardian in London and the China Daily in China, which say that no, this is the moment to actually launch the alternative energy. Now, is this a reflection of a struggle for subsidies in the anti-crisis packages, or is this the genuine desire to make energy clean? Yet another contradictory question. That said, in Russia, you have a joint initiative of three major companies, Rostec, Rosatom, and VEB, which is the Bank for Development, who have entered into an agreement to cooperate in the construction of 25 waste-to-energy plants. Waste-to-energy sounds very nice. The landfills in Russia are more than Denmark by size. But when we talk to the truly leading experts on the subject, who lives in Singapore, Mr. Bune, he accepts that the energy from waste is currently far more expensive than other means, including hydro, solar, wind, coal, oil, and gas. And oil and gas are, in turn, much less expensive as far as production of electricity is concerned in comparison with anything alternative. Now, in conclusion, let's turn back to the Center of European Reform Director Charles Grant's article, who wrote that the economic consequences of the coronavirus seem likely to strengthen opposition to climate-friendly policies. Many voters whose standards of living are falling dramatically will not want to take a further hit by embracing radical measures designed to lessen climate change. To which a French economist, Jean Pisani-Ferry, said poorer citizens will likely to be more reluctant to bear the cost of replacing obsolete brown capital embedded in heating systems, cars and machines with greener but costly capital, because this would destroy even more of the old jobs and leave even less income available for short-term consumption. Now, I've drawn a very contradictory picture, I know that. But out of this, there are two main questions which we must answer now, especially given the circumstances of the coronavirus pandemic. One question is a philosophical one, if you so wish. It's a philosophical economic one. Perhaps it's time to stop being hostages to slogans and catchwords and resume a calm conversation about the energy balance that will, among other things, solve the issue of preserving jobs after the pandemic. And in that sense, you could be a globalist, an anti-globalist, a left-winger, a right-winger, but there is this very proper way of considering the state of affairs, number of jobs. Do we want or don't we want to keep jobs after the crisis? And the other question is, it's an ethical one. Who would assume the cost of offsetting the high price of electricity from more expensive but admittedly appealing clean sources? And here we have this major contradiction between the South and the North, if talking in very broad terms, because yes, a wealthy person living, say, in London or New York or Paris is indeed happy and ready to pay a triple price for electricity in order to save the climate. What about the developing world? How do you sell this idea to a person living in a sub-Saharan Africa, saying that he or she must pay a triple price for electricity, especially in the places where sometimes even the very concept of electricity is non-existent? So in my view, this is going to be discussed, of course, among experts and ministers and the owners of the company shortly. But in my view, what the COVID crisis has taught us is that we, who are not ready even for humble solidarity between countries, are starting a fight again around concepts which are not acceptable to many, idealistic for others, and money creating, let's put it this way, for yet another third faction. I haven't got any answers, but these are the issues which must be discussed now and must be looked upon from the tower of not just economic viability, but also social responsibility. That's my message to you. Thanks for listening.